What's up, Burn Boot Camp? Welcome back to the Burn Boot Camp podcast. Today, I'm letting you in on a conversation I had with one of our franchise partners, Sammi Woyak. She is our franchise partner in Middleton, Wisconsin, and she just had a baby. So her and her husband are operating a gym, and now they have welcomed a new baby boy, Maverick, into their world. And as you can imagine, that has changed a lot from a business perspective and ownership perspective, and then adding in motherhood. So I had a fun chat with her today. We got a little bit vulnerable and just talked about some of the challenges that I also went through when my baby was young, when Cameron was young, and then obviously adding and growing our family alongside the growth of Burn Boot Camp. So check it out, guys. We talk a little bit about how to build systems in your business so you can step away and be a mom when your kids need you the most, how to communicate properly with your husband and communicate what you really, really need at the time. And then also finally just giving yourself a lot of grace during this period and know that it is just a season and it is going to go away probably quicker than you ever thought it would. And so just really honoring the season that you're in and, you know, doing what is best for you and making sure that you have the priorities set properly. So take a listen. We'll talk to you guys later.
I'm excited to talk with you because Devin and I, we had a really good conversation with Colton, talking about the transition from just being an entrepreneur and just worrying about that side to having kids. And because you guys are in the business together, you're doing the parenting together. And so we were kind of talking to him a little bit about what that looks like, the transition, because we are in the transitional period right
Yes,
now.
you really are. Like you're in the thick of it for sure with a little baby.
So I'm excited to get your perspective of just kind of how, because you guys were already going strong with Burn before you had Cameron, you know, and so I'm excited to hear about the transition for you and things that helped and how you kind of things you struggled with and all of it.
Yeah, like I think let me take you back to like when Cameron was born, because we were both training in our own gyms and I was the head trainer in Cornelius. He was the head trainer in Huntersville. And, you know, obviously the franchise was like just up and running. So we had so much going on, but I was so afraid to pull away from like my members because I was so fulfilled with like the training side of things and operating that gym. And so I think like for me, obviously going back to those early days with Cameron, it was all about just giving myself like a lot of grace for the season I'm in. And that's so hard for me to do because I thrive off of being busy. I thrive off of like my career and like working. And so it was definitely a big change to be like, oh, I'm a mother now too. Like I have to make sure I'm prioritizing the needs of my family. And that didn't necessarily always come natural, but that's also because as an entrepreneur, sometimes you're in these situations where you're like, I have to do this. It's my business. You know, it's our livelihood, especially when you both are doing it together. And so for me, like it was actually really hard sometimes to be like, hey, Morgan, you need to take a little bit of a step back. You don't need to do everything right now. And that's when I finally learned like the power of delegating small tasks to, you know, people that love me and trust me and understand the business and can serve the needs of the business. And it doesn't mean that, you know, I'm doing anything less or that, you know, I don't care. It's just, hey, I need to learn that only Morgan can do the things that Morgan can do. So I think for you and Colton, like, have you guys gotten super clear on like what his tasks are going to be and then like what your tasks are going to be, what you guys do together, how you guys even come together and how often, and then what are things that you're just both still doing that maybe you haven't wanted to let it go a little bit, but you know you need to. And that's kind of, for me, like training was one of them. I had to take myself off the schedule a little bit more because I needed to have flexibility with Cameron being so little and I was breastfeeding and we didn't have a nanny, you know? So she was kind of along for the ride for everywhere I went. And right around 4 months is when I decided to just bring somebody in part-time to help me so I could like get away for a little bit and focus on things. And that was obviously hard to do, but I needed to delegate a little bit of mom life and I needed to delegate a little bit of work life. And so maybe talk to me a little bit like how you guys split up your roles right now or where you're finding the most challenges or frustration just even in yourself.
Yeah. So we had, everything organized, accountability chart, tasks were very clear before Maverick came along. And my idea, they say having a kid is going to be hard, but you have no idea until you actually do it, like how hard it really is.
Yeah.
And so so when he kind of came, I had this idea in my head, where I was going to be kind of out for 3 weeks, and then 4th week, I was going to start jumping back into it. And that 4th week came, and I brought on some things, and I had to take a step back and say, I am drowning. Like, I can't do this yet. I'm not ready.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of slowly brought things back to where we're at now. And now we're in the place where we're completely revamping our accountability chart and what our tasks look like. Because there's too much on my plate right now. And I realized that by kind of taking everything on and still trying to do everything I was doing before, I'm not only missing out on, I'm getting pulled in the direction of Mav, and I'm missing out on some of his things, but feel like I'm letting people down because I'm not able to give 100% of what I was giving before. And so right now we had a meeting last week, to sit down, and we went through our accountability chart and all of our tasks, and basically kind of redelegated things to our leadership team, and taking some things off of my plate. What I am struggling with now is the unpredictability of the business, right? There are things that pop up. You can have the idea of like, hey, this is what I'm going to do every day.
Yep.
But then all of a sudden something pops up that's supposed to be my responsibility. But then Mav's having a really rough day and it's just me. And so we're kind of playing around with some of those things too, because it's when things pop up that it's okay, now what? Because it all looks great in our heads, but it's not, it's just not, we have an idea in our heads. And then as we're going, I feel right now that we're just in this chaotic period of we need to get things organized and solidified and figure it out, because it's hard, because I want to be I still want to be doing all the things that I was doing.
Well,
and
I was in your shoes 100%, because I was the type that I felt like every email needed to be answered like that day. I was that type of person that was like, I need to make sure I get final sign off on everything. Like that definitely is my personality, where I don't like to be out of the loop on things. And so I've had to learn, not just through kids, but just through growth of our business. I cannot be a part of every meeting, and I cannot be a part of every decision. And I really need to build the processes on when I do need to be involved and what is the most important thing. And that's hard to give up some of that control. But if you have the right people in your guys' organization, which I'm sure you do, and you've identified those right people, it's just taking a chance on them and like letting them fail a little bit, letting you guys learn through some of these experiences, and realizing that like if you have an emergency that comes up, that's one thing, but you have your perfect day and maybe something comes up that's on you. Just really ask yourself, like, can this be handled tomorrow? During my period of time that I'm going to work. And I think we overestimate the urgency sometimes of how and when things need to be handled. And I think we put that on ourselves. And I'm saying that because I am that. And so obviously I don't know all the tasks that you're speaking of, but I would try to like take that filter of like, can it wait until my next time that I am going to focus on the business? And that might be tomorrow, or that might be the next day. Nothing's wrong with, hey, I acknowledge this email, or hey, I acknowledge this problem's going on in the gym. Here's when I'm going to be able to get to it. And you're setting the expectations for your employees or for your members, and they at least know that it's been acknowledged, and then there's going to be a follow-up. So like just little things like that have helped me manage like the chaos of my everyday, of like so many things coming at me all the time. And then I got to go home, and then I'm going to be mom mode. And if I don't set the right expectation for myself first, then I'm never fully present for the people that I want to be present for. So, I think you guys are it sounds like you're doing the right things with really identifying like your role, Colton's role, your team's role, your accountability charts. It's a constant evolution of that. So I love that you guys have gone back to that, because my accountability is constantly tweaking and changing as I'm able to build up people around me and give them more trust in certain parts of the business. Then that takes away from me having to do it all. But I want to go back to like building those systems too of like, in your mind, what gives you like the feeling of not satisfaction, but like calmness and peace, like, okay, everything's being controlled. I think you need to like kind of think through, what does that mean to you? Because that's how you're going to want to build a system to have your team report things into you. You know, I mean, you're the leader, Sammi. So like, it's okay for you to say, here's how I want things, and here's when I want them, and here's the method I want them. You know, like that's a system. And that's then where you can go be mom, and then like you can get something delivered to you in a way that meets your needs to feel good and confident that things are being handled without having to know every detail of whatever that is. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yes, I'm very guilty to wanting to know every detail of
we all are.
Something's getting done. I'm curious. So what are some tips you have about like, so getting into that organized place and getting those systems in place is huge. But when you first started off and like, this is such a new role, it was such a new role to you. What steps did you take to kind of get to that place of, okay, like now looking at my life right now, looking at things that I want to do, and I know the tasks I want to take, the systems I want to put in place, but it's how it's getting there. And what are some things that you did just to kind of get in that organized place?
It's definitely a work in progress. And sometimes I feel like I take 2 steps forward and like 3 steps back. So I think it's not a linear path of you do this and then this is the result, because, you know, then you might have turnover in your team, and then you might have to retrain people, or there's just changes in the business. And so for me, it's like looking at the core processes of everything that's happening within a day, within a week, within a month, within a quarter, right? So like chunking it out and kind of going annual plan down to quarterly, down to monthly, down to my weekly meetings, down to what do I want to do every day. And like just sometimes it's really just auditing for an entire month, you know, and like taking note of all the processes that you don't have a documentation for, you don't have a system for. And then it's chipping away at what that needs to look like. And so it's about also delegating that, right? So like, let's just say Burn Ambassador, you know, hey, I want you to write me your process right now for X, Y, and Z. And then you get to look at that, right? So you don't have to develop all this stuff yourself. Like that's a lot to put on your shoulders. Have your team do that, right? Empower them to say, hey, we need a process for this. I want you to take your first draft at it, you know, or hey, this is an outline. Now I want you to go make it better, right? And so it's kind of a pitch and catch with the people around me that I've put in those positions to lead a part of the business. And it's just kind of trial and error and saying like, did this work and how do we want to do it differently? And so that's where like a really good meeting pulse is going to be beneficial for you. And so for me, like my meeting pulse is I have a same page with Devin once a month, which sometimes we need it more often. I actually would prefer once a week, but it's fine. We do a 4-hour meeting once a month. And that's where, you know, him and I connect over kind of bigger picture things and like vision and like big issues. But then obviously we're communicating all the time. But that's a good way for like him and I to connect over how we're doing. And then with my team, like I have every Tuesday morning is our L10, right? And so that's kind of where I'm hearing like I've built processes in like the headline section for them to bring me stuff, right? And it's like, I don't barely ever put things in headlines. Like I'm wanting them to do that and like share with me what's going on in the business. And then those headlines can sometimes turn into IDS or, you know, so we really, we lean into the EOS into boss, like really, really heavily. And I would say that's what's helped me over the last 3 or 4 years to really like build systems. And so when I stepped into CEO, like I was already running on that methodology and I just took it to another level because now I had visibility over the whole business and not just in my COO seat. So yeah, does that help answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It's the common theme of delegation.
Yeah.
You know, but it's where I have these ideas of people that I want to delegate tasks to and responsibilities to help, but I also have a list of processes and systems that I want to create, but having somebody create that system and that process and then come back to me with it is honestly, I just never thought of that, because I feel like this just need to control everything.
Yeah.
And this need, like, this is my, it's my baby.
You feel like I'm the owner, so I should be the one that's, telling them and training them into the process. And I think it depends on the employee, right? If it's someone who's been with you guys that has been doing it their way or just doing it a way, like, because I know you guys obviously acquired the gym too. So it's like they may be still doing things the old way and you want to evolve that. And so, but once you ask them to actually put it on paper and then you guys can have something, a starting point to talk through, that took away probably a couple hours of your work of trying to create something from scratch. So I think it's all dependent on the employee. Obviously you don't want to hire somebody tomorrow and be like, okay, come build me a process. Right. So you got to find, so try not to think of it as like they're learning something themselves, and it's a collaboration that you're giving them the empowerment to build. And then you're going to, you get the authority to go through and say, hey, I like about 80% of this. Let's tweak this. And hey, at this point, this is where I want to know how many, leads came in or something like that. Right.
Yeah.
So let that empower those people. And that's going to save hours out of your week and out of your month, feeling like you have this daunting list of processes and systems to build.
Yeah. I love that. Did you feel that as you were kind of, became a mom and took on that role, did you feel like, because obviously we also have to step back to a certain degree, like you said too. And did you feel like that cup was not being filled for you?
The mom cup or the career cup?
The career cup.
Yeah, I definitely went through those times. For sure. Like when they're the age that you have right now, and like, just the age where they need us so much more, right? Like I always breastfed for, almost a year. And so there's definitely things I just had to be okay with. Hey, this is the season I'm in and I can't travel, like Devin would be traveling and like I would kind of watch from afar from the couch with a baby, on my lap. And, I loved that. Like I was so grateful for that, but it's still like there was a void for sure. And when you're in the moment, you feel like you're never going to get out of it because you're just kind of like, well, this is my life now. But, your kids do grow, and unfortunately, and they become more independent, and so you feel like you are trying to do 100% of both. And sometimes that's not realistic, but that's just a very, very short season, Sammy. Like doesn't feel short right now because you're in it. But I'm telling you, like before you know it, your capacity is going to grow again from a career side. And, and then maybe you might have baby number 2 and then it knocks down a little bit, and
then we start over.
And then you start over. And so like, that's kind of been my life for the last, Cameron's 8. So we have an 8, a 6 and a 3-year-old. And so like Cam and Max were like back to back. So I felt like I had just gotten out of the season and then I was like pregnant again. And, but again, like if I look back, it's like I did exactly what I needed to do at that time to serve my business and to serve my home. And that meant delegating more, which was hard for sure. But it, you don't want to replace the time that you get with Maverick either.
And it's just funny because you guys are, just have the same kind of, because you're both in the business together. And I have a really difficult time stepping back and not, watching him like go and to the gym every morning and do these things. And so I was so back and forth. We went to the conference in Arizona last week.
Yeah.
And we always knew Colton was going to go. And I was back and forth and I was like, no, I can't. And then I got a couple messages like, just come, bring Mav and it'll be great. They're easy to fly with at this time. Yeah. And that's all I needed to be like, okay, I'm going.
Yeah.
And so we took a 2-month-old, not even 2-month-old, across the country for a conference because I couldn't say no.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I sat in that after the first day was fine, but the second day, I mean, he's a baby. I just messed with his system. Like he's, you know,
and the time change.
I remember,
yeah.
And I remember being, I just told Colton, I was like, hey, you have to be 100% invested in this right now. And I'm going to get what I can out of it. But I was constantly being pulled by him. And I remember sitting there with him and I just like, it just hit me exactly what you're saying where, okay, I have to let go of, because clearly I can't do everything right now. And I'm having a tough time letting go of that.
I know.
Of that career cup because it needed that to really kind of hit me in the face, I think, to be like, hey, like, Sammi, this is not working.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, too, as entrepreneur, just like working for yourself for so long. Like I've worked for 20 years and it's just all of a sudden that gets kind of taken. Well, it's hard.
I think try to think of the bright side of like, first of all, like your husband is your business partner. So like there's no one else that you trust more to kind of take the lead right now and like, you know, trust that he's got it under control. And like this community and this business is going to be, it's going to be there on the other side of you having a little, and it's all progress, right? So like right now, 2 months, that's so young, right? But like as things start to, as he gets older, like you may get an hour back every once, you know, an hour or two back every once in a while. Like it's not as constant. And so just know that like I said, this business isn't going to go anywhere. And that was comforting for me to be like, okay, even though I wish I was doing this with Devin or, you know, out in the gym, like he's got this and like I'm home and like we're going to be a team right now. And that's the way that we still approach parenting, you know, now that like our kids they don't need me for their nutrition, right? But like they need me. But like also now they're at the ages where like dad could stay home when they're sick too. Like, and we both now get the opportunity and the flexibility in our jobs to be like, okay, who's going to do this? Cause I have a full day of meetings. Like, can you stay back? And he's like, yeah, I got a much more clear schedule. Like, you know, and so it's also a beautiful thing that you get to work for yourself and that you get to like prioritize this stuff now because it's still going to be there when you come back. And the beautiful thing is we have this amazing community that you also get to bring your kid in a lot. Like Cameron, you know, the fact that you said you traveled, Cam traveled to 9 states in her first year because this was before, like, remember when we would go to every opening? Like, I don't know if you remember that. It was way back. Like we went to every opening. And so there was some that like, obviously just Devin would go. And that's when I would like feel that heartburn. But then I was like, hey, let's take Cameron, you know? And yeah, she went to 9 states. I think Max went to like 6 in his first year. Like I remember we like journaled all of it. And so, yeah, it's so much harder to take a baby and it's so chaotic, but now we have those memories too, to be like, yeah, we went to a business conference and you came with us. And yeah, mom had to step out for almost, 4 hours of a session, but I stroll you down the hallways of like the hotel, but you got to maybe enjoy a little bit of that and that connection. And you shouldn't isolate yourself because, the community is going to energize you, even if it's just like bits and pieces here and there. So I would keep doing that. I would keep you put yourself out there and you'll know when it's too much, or you'll know when, hey, I'm just going to go home. Baby's really fussy. I'm going to leave the gym, and it's just, again, trusting those people, whether that's Colton or your team, to like just build you up right now and let you go be mom. And then, but still like get to insert yourself when it's the most important.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I kept feeling like I just like was so crazy for bringing this kid with me.
I love that, and you probably had a bunch of mamas wanting to hold him and rock him
plenty.
Yeah.
Plenty. And it's you're very right in the sense that it just like I'll know when it's too much.
Yeah.
But that's hard because sometimes you have like my lifestyle looks so different from so many other moms that I know. And so I feel that guilt of both ways, and it just is it's a different beast.
Listen, I have battled that for 8 years. You know, I have a lot of friends that are stay-at-home moms, and I think that that's amazing. And then I have obviously a lot of friends that are working moms too. And so you got to just do what works for you. And I am somebody who is a better mom because I have a career, because I feel that the lessons that I'm giving my kids are through my work, you know, and some women can be a stay-at-home mom and the lessons that they give their kids are so much different, you know, and that's beautiful too. But for me, it's like, this is what I know and this is who I am. I've had a job since I was 12 years old at my mom's salon, you know, so working is just part of my DNA, and that's how I know how to show my kids the values that are important to me. So if you ever feel like that guilt of, you know, I'm working and, you know, I'm away, I just want you to know that like you're going to be teaching your kids so many life lessons by doing that, and like showing them what sacrifice looks like, and showing them what hard work looks like, and showing them what building something that's bigger than yourself that impacts people in a positive way. And, you know, you're a servant and you're taking care of people. They're not going to get all of that when they're super young, but like it's going to come full circle for them. And they're watching you guys. And I mean, my kids like act like they're, you know, the MCs of athlete games or the trainers or the CEO or on stage speaking, because we've brought them to that, right? So like integrating your kids into the gym and vice versa, you know, is going to shape them as humans. And I think I obviously that's my beliefs because I choose to be, you know, a working mom. So you just got to constantly listen to what's right for you and what's on your heart. And if it's to continue to build, you know, your guys' businesses, then there's always a way. And you don't have to choose, you know, there's a way to do it both. You just got to be really clear on where you need to be and when you need to be there. And always know that like the business can wait. Like, you know, if you need to tend to your kids, the business can wait. And if people can't understand that, that's okay. I'd rather lose a customer because, you know, they can't love and appreciate my priorities than sacrifice what means the most to me, you know. But thankfully I've never had that situation, and I don't think you will either, because we're serving a lot of moms, you know, and we're serving families. And so for them, you know, if you don't show up to something because you've prioritized that, I think it would be very much received in a good way versus, you know, being in any other kind of business.
There are a lot of good reminders that you gave me too, that it's just, you know, like you say it so much to somebody else until they say it to you is when you really need to listen. And I appreciate too, just getting the advice of delegating and all that. 'Cause delegating is really difficult for me.
Yep.
But ever-changing process, and we're figuring it out one day at a time. But no, I really appreciate this conversation, Morgan. I really do.
Absolutely. Anytime, like I said. So I'm looking forward to seeing you at Summit. Are you coming?
I am, without the child.
Already got childcare figured out? Perfect.
We do. So we'll be there. But no, I appreciate it so much. Thank you for connecting.
Absolutely.